sorry that we couldn't be funny for you. We
It's
couldn't
okay.
be there.
I forgive you.
The problem was,
I forgive you, my son.
What are you doing? Were you messing with my hair?
No, I was doing the Simba thing. Well,
Oh, were you? Well, you did. You were on the top of my head.
No,
not my.
that's
you're supposed
Ash Wednesday. The Simba thing is he like swipes it across
Oh.
his forehead. He doesn't
My-
make a little cross on his forehead.
my Catholic is showing.
I'm doing the Simba thing in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. I announce you King of Pride Rock.
You are the king now. Everything the light touches is yours.
What about that place, Dad?
Was the light touching it?
That's 4chan.
Yeah.
You must never go there.
Yeah.
I think my favorite was he just looks down and goes, "Is the light touching it? What did I just say?"
So in the dark, is he not king anymore?
Yeah,
No.
that's why he's sleeping.
Gotcha. Oh, okay. So every time he
In the
blinks, does he stop being king for a moment?
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's that forever.
So at that moment, you can put
Okay, wait. Hold on, though. He doesn't say everything that you see the light touch is yours. Which means...
He says everything the light touches is yours.
Exactly. Which means that at any given point, he's the king of some part of the world.
Yeah, he's the king of the whole world.
Yeah. But somehow the sun doesn't shine on an elephant graveyard.
Right.
Yeah.
That's because it's the elephant graveyard. And for
Gotcha.
plot reasons, it can't have light in it.
Huh.
And also,
Can we talk about how...
that's ridiculous because light actually does touch, or you wouldn't be able to see in it. But
Oh,
you can
yeah.
clearly see in the.
What if you bring your own light?
Then you're creating light.
But Christ wasn't in this.
We're not talking about him anymore.
Well, what if? I guess that's a good point. If you bring your own flashlight,
Exactly.
Are you creating your own kingdom? What if What if I shine a flashlight in the middle of the day on his kingdom? Does that equal that? That is also my kingdom too.
Or you bring an umbrella. And
Or
are
we-
you a sovereign Are you a sovereign citizen if you
Anywhere I move becomes
carry,
sovereign.
if you carry an umbrella with you through Pride Rock?
Oh, maybe. Don't come in here, Simba. This is my land.
The light's not touching me.
We'll just do a Simba goes to the Middle East and brings a flashlight with him, and now he owns
I like.
Yeah.
all the different countries he walks through.
I like the idea.
Is
that-
Simba the answer to all the conflicts in the Middle East? Discuss.
Wait, does light doesn't touch the underground? So does
Yeah.
that mean all of like the muskrats and stuff that hide underground?
They're
So they're not.
only his
not,
citizens when they peek their heads up.
right. They're not the disciples of.
I don't think muskrats live in Africa though.
What's the thing? What's puma and
Meerkat.
Oh, meerkat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The more you know.
Yeah. Wait, did you say Pumbaa?
Pumbaa and Timon. Yeah, like
Yeah,
what
okay,
is
yeah.
Timon
Yeah.
and Pumbaa?
Pumbaa's a warthog.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pumbaa's a warthog. Man, I don't know if you ever watched JonTron, but do you remember like? Did you watch JonTron at all?
Not really.
So he went over like bootleg Disney games.
Yeah.
And there was one, it was like a bootleg Lion King. And you got the chance, you could play as Simba, Pumbaa, or Timon. And
Okay.
when they would when you would lose a mission, they would have their own like versions of death. Like they'd have their own version of death scenes. So like Pumbaa's would just jump into a boiling pot of water, and it would say like "Game Over" screen continue, and if you said no, he would jump in and die. Simba would just hang from like a rope, and no, that was that was a second version. The first version is the one where Pumbaa jumps in a pot of hot water. Timon digs his own grave and then jumps in it and just covers himself. And Simba hangs himself. I can show you the videos for it.
I mean, the Pumbaa one makes sense because aren't they shoving it? Isn't he the one they're trying to shove into a vent
cauldron
or
the whole
something?
time,
Or,
yeah.
yeah.
Right. Well, he just boils himself
they're trying to
alive.
cook him.
But that's because the other one that I was thinking of is there's a second version of it that was a bootleg Lion King, and that one also ends with like the continue screen counting down from 10, and Simba's hanging from like a string, and as the timer goes out, he's slowly falling down the string.
Oh my god.
That's so fun.
It also nothing has to do with them in like the actual deserts of their homeland. Everything in the background is all China related. Like one of the levels is Simba walking around like a Chinese village, and in the background is terracotta soldiers and everything. It's crazy. It's a crazy.
Wrong continent,
So-
Simba.
So could Simba be become the ruler of China
Yes.
When the light touches it, yes.
when the light touches it. But what if there was like someone?
Well, they
that was
can't because Winnie the
conquering?
Pooh already
We're banned in China now.
Banned in China.
Winnie the Pooh already runs China.
I think we've already said mean things about China before.
That's great.
Um,
Oh, you can never not say enough mean things about China.
is there any empire left that the sun doesn't set on? Because the sun never set on the British Empire until it did.
The British had a thriving empire until they didn't.
I don't think the U.S. has enough territories in like Europe, in that like those parts, those time zones. Because we've got territory on like the Pacific, on both sides of the Pacific.
We've got territory on
I failed
in,
geography, so
in
I
the
don't
West and throughout Europe because Europe wants us to stay there.
Yeah, but we don't own anything there.
No,
Unless you
no,
can-
we don't.
Unless you count embassies, but then every country,
Yeah,
basically.
every country has an embassy. Well, that's a big thing because of NATO. Like after World War II, because the Soviet Union was so aggressive, Europe knew that they couldn't handle Russia. So they actually, the reason why they made NATO is so that the United States could stay there. And they're effectively, that's why we have bases all over the places to deter any aggression from larger forces into
And
Europe.
to this day, the U.S. bankrolls the defense of most of the world.
Yes. Yeah, we do.
Speaking of defending the world,
Heyo.
I also like how we're transitioning to this almost immediately after saying mean things about China.
Oh, yeah, we should. Oh,
Hey, screw the CCP,
obviously.
but the Chinese are cool. Well,
Obviously.
the ones that aren't supporting the CCP.
Shang-Chi was really good, guys.
We got there, boy. We did it. We did. Mission accomplished. High fives all around.
I hope that our listeners are sitting there going like, is this supposed to be funny? Like,
Shang-Chi, we went to see Shang-Chi on its opening weekend because yesterday would have been the end of its opening weekend. And
no, not technically.
Isn't today-
yeah, it would.
No.
doesn't Sunday count?
Tomorrow. It's a holiday weekend.
So do they still count
I think
the next
they
day?
count Monday too. Don't they?
No, I don't think they do. But also, this comes out on Monday, so to keep with continuity for the listeners, it was yesterday.
Okay.
But never mind, it doesn't matter. Today is the last day,
Sure.
or tomorrow.
Happy Labor Day, everyone.
Happy
Good,
happy
good,
Labor
good
Day.
labor, everyone. Work. Good work.
Technically, no, not good labor because half of the country is not working.
Happy communist
But it's
holiday,
but
everyone.
It's not their fault they're not working. It's not their choice. Sorry. Go ahead.
I
Do you guys
mean,
actually know the background behind Labor Day?
No.
There was a bunch of
I don't
unions
care.
in,
I
in
get
Chicago that
this
like
day off.
rioted because they didn't have a day off, and then that's where they created Labor Day out of it.
Huh.
So it's literally a communist holiday.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's
Also,
literally a communist holiday.
everyone, just a PSA: make sure you throw out all of your white clothing today. You're not allowed to wear white after Labor Day.
Oh, I'm going to the gym tomorrow in all white.
After Labor Day. Today's Labor Day.
Oh.
Today, as in when people are
so
listening.
tomorrow I'm going to wear all white at the gym.
I understand
Jesus.
that. I understand.
We film this show on Sundays.
it is really, really funny because like sometimes we want to stick with the continuity of it shows out on Monday, and then sometimes we want to stick with the idea of when we're
It's too
recording.
confusing.
It's like when you read a math problem.
I do like that you sent me a text. I sent you a text like during the week to prepare you for like what we were going to talk about. I sent you like a mountain of stuff, and you're just like, I love how when we finally moved the date to a reasonable time, now all the news comes out before Wednesday.
Yeah. We everything would come out on like Thursday or Friday when we were recording on Wednesday.
Right.
And now that we're recording on Sundays, everything comes out on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, speaking of, PlayStation should be having an event this Thursday. They should be announcing God of War.
PlayStation is
can we get a
already
trailer?
People
Yeah.
are already mad at PlayStation.
Speaking of,
do you
actually,
think Thor will be the only villain in that game?
no. I think Thor. I think, to be honest with you, what I would like to see is about midway through the game, Thor kill Kratos because Kratos is immortal. Him go to Helheim, and then Thor take Atreus to Asgard. And
Yeah.
because they already established that time passes differently within the realms, I actually want that to be the speedy way that they have Atreus grow up. So Kratos is going to come out going, hold on, I thought time slowed down in Helheim. And then Mimir's going to look at him and go, yeah, but in Asgard it goes faster. So now you have him coming back
so
out.
Atreus will be Loki by that point.
So now you have this
Loki.
identity crisis of he gets to be raised as Atreus and Loki, and then he has to choose who he's going to be.
They should hire you.
But
To,
like,
they should hire you to write stuff.
but then
I
that,
really
be a
like
right.
God of War.
but doesn't that
I have
then
a funny
kind
story,
of
too.
torpedo his Kratos' growth in this game, in the past game?
No, I think
of
it
trying to
actually
become a father.
I think it actually increases it because now what's
Again?
gonna because I think what's gonna happen is he I think a way that they could do it effectively is that he sacrifices himself so that Atreus doesn't die, and then Thor goes, okay, well I killed the man who killed my brother, so now I'll take you to Asgard, and then you're going to be raised as an Asgardian. Mm-hmm. And when Kratos comes back out to try and get his son back, knowing that his son might still be in danger, when he comes back, his son is already an adult. So
Yeah.
when he would start to fight Loki or Atreus, and like I think he'll be more Loki at this point. He'll start to fight him, not knowing who it is, and then Atreus is going to look at him and go, "Wait, you're my dad. How did you come back? I watched Thor kill you." And
Yeah, but technically, we watched them come back to life already. Because like Thor went. Remember, didn't Thor go to Helheim to after he got his?
Thor didn't show up until
or not Thor. Didn't Kratos go to Helheim to get his after he got his blades
yeah.
back?
Yeah,
He went to
but
Helheim?
that was where they established that time moves differently within the realms.
Right, so it wouldn't be that
So-
surprising that Kratos came back from Helheim since he's already done
But
it once.
he's dead
Oh, I see.
because he went to Helheim. He
I
didn't
see.
die and
this
go to
time
Helheim.
he's dead. Okay.
So
He-
Atreus is going to look at it as Kratos is dead. Kratos is only going to feel moments pass because no matter how long it takes him to get out, it's only going to be moments in Midgard. But by the time he gets back to Midgard and finds Atreus could have been in Asgard, and Asgardian time could be faster, allowing him to grow up quicker.
yeah.
And now it gives Kratos a reason to go after the gods because they've taken his son, and it also sets up this dynamic of would he actually be willing to put down his son if his son went tyrannical? So now you actually have multiple themes that could pay off depending on what Loki does.
I get that, but like I feel like that then like it kind of devalues some of the growth he went through in this game and in the previous game, that being God of War 2016, 2017.
In the newest God of War, I think it's
God of War.
2018. Yeah.
But then 2018. But then also now we're just retreading the previous God of War games where he's just trying to get vengeance.
Well, in this case, it's not vengeance because in the Greek pantheon, he was angry at the gods for one.
Well, okay, wait, step back for a sec.
Yeah.
Quick elevator pitch on the story of God of War.
Okay, God of War.
For anyone listening who doesn't know.
Kratos is the son of Zeus but doesn't know it in the first game. Kratos is a warrior that calls out to Ares to defeat his enemies and then he'll be his. Ares tricks him into killing his wife and daughter so that he can become the perfect warrior. A sage there makes him wear their ashes the rest of his life, which is why he's white, which I think is like one of the coolest historic characters.
Where does the
ever.
red come from again?
The red is actually a tattoo of his from his brother
That's right.
Deimos. So, but what? So after that, he wants to get revenge against Ares. He succeeds in killing Ares and becomes the new God of War. Then the Greek gods, fearing him, try to strike him down, and then he says, "Screw it, I'm going to kill all of you," because he was promised that his memories would be taken away of killing his family if he would take out Ares. So effectively, they lied to him. They told him that they'll never let him die, and he'll have to live with that the rest of his life. So he's an angry individual, and one of the coolest things in the third game is as he kills the gods, everything that god controls falls apart. So like when he kills Poseidon in the beginning, it's like really cool because he kills Poseidon, and then the seas go crazy. They flood, they kill people. When he kills Helios, the sun goes away and locust swarms come. Like it's just this really cool. Like you don't realize what those gods are holding up. He didn't realize what he was destroying, but he was a malevolent, tyrannical god. So in the new one that they came out with, he moves to the Norse mythology, and he decides he wants to be a benevolent god. He wants to be a good god. And that's his arc is fighting those urges to be an angry, malevolent god.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't matter. No one's going to
And
play
his,
it.
his wife was just human, right?
No, she was a giant.
Oh, okay.
Oh wait, the original one was just the original
No,
wife.
the one that Atreus' mother.
Atreus'
giant.
mother was a giant.
Okay.
Doesn't matter. No one's going to be able to play it anyway.
Boy.
No PlayStation 5s anywhere. At
Yeah.
least if you follow Twitter.
I
Did you-
think-
did you know that?
I think that's going to be the big news on Thursday.
Probably not.
I think what it is they changed the heat sinks and they changed a couple different
well,
hardware things.
The
and-
heat sink's a problem now.
No, it's not actually.
It is actually. Are you following that?
It's running 2 degrees hotter, but the fans aren't turning on, meaning that the internal components aren't getting hot enough to kick
well,
the
when
fans
they
on.
did you see them do a teardown of the new console versus the old one?
Yeah, well,
There's literally no heat sink there. Like there's less heat sinks on the system.
yeah, there's less heat sinks, but I think they found a way to more effectively cool it because the original one is blowing fans and is super loud. The new one with the smaller heat sinks, the fans aren't turning on and they're not overheating. So they actually did something better.
I don't know, man. They're getting
They might have
getting
just-
The exhaust
the bigger-
is running hotter, but the
Right, but
internals are
The
not
bigger
a
heat
problem.
sinks
Right,
might
but
have
if-
just been blocking airflow.
Well,
Yes.
if you have something, but if you have these, they've shown if you have these PlayStations in like an entertainment
Oh
thing,
yeah, yeah.
they're
yeah.
going they're going to
but
overheat.
You shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah,
Anyway.
you wouldn't do it with your computer either. You shouldn't
right,
do
but
it.
a PlayStation is not a computer.
Yes, it is.
I have never seen a console just not sitting like in my entertainment
Yeah.
system. It still sits
I-
in. You can't go.
They're not. No.
You
I
can't
don't
do-
think they're talking about the kind of entertainment center that you have, where it's open in the front and back. I think they're talking about the kind where you actually like the back is closed.
That's what
Yeah,
I'm.
they're
That's
talking
what
about
I'm
glass
talking
doors.
about.
I know.
Yeah.
And that's what mine is. That's what they're saying is with the problem with the newer PlayStations now is the heat sinks are going to become even more of a pain. Like it's gonna help them get hotter. It's not.
Well,
They
and-
didn't actually do an improvement on them.
But no, I think the thing is, it's not necessarily an improvement, but it's an acceptable downgrade that doesn't affect performance.
That was the point of why they did it. They said they did their upgrades to them because it was supposed to be an improvement on the PlayStation.
No, so
5.
I think,
That's exactly
I think what the problem is.
That was the whole
because I think
that
the
was,
heat sinks are their biggest issue right now.
All
because
right,
they
well-
can't
right,
get
but
the
that
supply
was
chain.
Sony's argument is that they did this is because
Yeah.
it was an improvement on the loud fans, and it was easier to get more PlayStations made this way. But the
Yes.
problem is
So
if
they
your
can get 'em out.
upgrade is actually worse because it's causing your PlayStations to run hotter. Especially in a closed-in entertainment stand, which most people was what they'll be putting this PlayStation in. It doesn't look Twitter. Right? I want to talk about what I was trying to what I'm over here giggling about.
But how hot is hotter?
So right now, without being like in a closed case, so they find 2 degree.
2 degree.
Just by like running, just start up at time 2 degrees hotter after an
2
hour.
degrees over what?
52. So since it's all of the things I,
think it
saw
runs
were
51
done.
and 53.
Yeah.
That's
So,
Celsius?
so this was all in Canada. So
Yeah.
yeah, I guess Celsius.
Normal computers can run it. Most computers these days are built to run like all day, every day at like 80. They can do it just fine.
Right.
Okay.
Well, so what they saw with these is it's 2 degrees hotter, which can have a performance issue with the device, with the PlayStation.
So I
Can
think,
show like a performance issue.
and I agree with
And
that.
when
What
after an hour and a half in a closed off station, it burns 6 degrees hotter. And
So what was the original?
and maybe, right.
53 high end?
So I think it was 52.
it's 51 to 53 or 53
I
to
think
55.
it was. I think
It's
it
one or
was
the other.
51
Yeah.
on like the first PlayStation, and then the newer upgrade ones. I think it's 53 now is what it burns up to.
and the reason why that was where like people got real upset about it, but they're finding out that it's irrelevant is that's the exhaust that's coming out the back.
Right,
That's
I mean-
not the internal temperature. And because the fans aren't kicking on, they think that they're actually effectively pushing the heat
The
out
issue-
of the center.
Well, the issue is what is the internal parts. If you look at the difference in the internals, it's a problem. It's not a big problem. Like
Yeah.
it's not gonna. Your
It's only gonna
PlayStation's
affect
not gonna explode after.
And there's
like,
no way your PlayStation's powerful enough to get itself up to like 90. 100 degrees
Right,
is about the point where
it's not gonna
PCs
explode.
will power throttle and
They'll fail.
They'll
It's-
not fail. They'll throttle about 100. It takes
Right.
even more than that to actually cause it to fail.
It's
unless
not
they're
gonna.
using
It's
subpar
not gonna
components.
explode after an hour of playing it, but it
No.
is It's a significant problem because it is going to degrade your PlayStation's performance faster than it would have.
But that's the trade-off with getting more supply out there right now.
I get
Yeah.
that, but the thing is, like you can't. You have to acknowledge that, and they don't. PlayStation
And I think
doesn't
another
want to
issue is
acknowledge
that like they also don't want to build a console that's the size of your PC over there. Which, if they want good airflow and the kind of graphics they want to push these days, you're going to be talking about a console that's like 2 feet
you might as well have
wide
got a
and a
computer,
foot
yeah.
tall.
Understandable, but you're not understanding why people are mad about it. That's the problem.
Well,
you're playing. You're trying to defend PlayStation on a completely understandable. Like I'm on your end of it, but you also to understand why people are angry about this is because this upgrade, even though it is going to allow us to get more PlayStations, in theory, it's probably not. Really, in the end, it's probably not going to affect, because right now it's not the problem with supply, it's the problem with how they're distributing. There's Walmart who's not doing a good job distributing because of, unfortunately, scalpers. That's still a problem. Just because they're building more PlayStations and more are coming out, that's not fixing the problem. And PlayStation does not acknowledge that, because there's a problem on their site that's even worse.
Well, but those are two separate issues, and
right.
I think the thing that's unfair about PlayStation and the thing that I'm defending is that people are being upset that the exhaust is 2 degrees higher, but the internals I don't believe are higher. So it's one of those things where it's logical to believe
we don't have
that
the data.
it's running hot.
We don't have the data yet,
and that's exactly it. People are upset about something that we don't know is going to happen yet, and also, if you can get more out, then you can get away from the scalpers.
But you can predict by looking at the internals.
Here's the thing, though, too, in regard to the scalpers. What is PlayStation or Sony's incentive to get rid of scalpers? Scalpers get their stock out of there as soon as it's made. It's like car dealerships.
Right.
Car dealerships are really beneficial to manufacturers because the car dealerships buy the cars, and car manufacturers sell, like, however many cars they build, get bought.
Immediately, yeah.
And Sony's experiencing the same thing with scalpers.
Well,
they don't care if you and me and him each buy a PlayStation 5 or one person buys 3. It makes no difference to Sony.
No,
right.
but the thing,
not to saying it's right.
There is like a thing with Sony is that their fans are angry. Like if you look, when on Twitter you have not a PlayStation 5 like trending because PlayStation asked a simple question of what are you playing, and everyone's just like, not a PlayStation 5 because there's none out there. You can't get them.
How much are they being affected too by all the chip shortages?
I think the heatsink was their biggest issue, and that's why they tried to redesign.
So it's changed. So it was a silicon issue.
Yeah,
was the original.
Well, because all the chip manufacturing plants ramped down because all these companies that use chips, graphics
Stopped
cards,
using
game consoles, cars especially.
Well, consoles
they reduced their orders with the silicon companies because they didn't expect to need to build as many.
Right.
And those chip manufacturers can't ramp up production very fast.
No. Yeah.
Right.
So
I think the one problem with because gaming consoles were also on the low end of what was important to get built. So cars and stuff had a higher priority. That's what also didn't help in PlayStation and Xbox. Like it's clear, both Xbox and PlayStation are having issues with getting
PC.
stock.
Well, and you still can't get graphics cards.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
To be honest with you, I think the thing with the Xbox isn't as big of an issue because I can still play with my Xbox One with someone that has an X series.
Right.
Like, so I don't have to upgrade right now.
Yeah.
But if I want to play the new PlayStation games coming out, I do have to upgrade. But I think PlayStation is in this unwinnable position where it's like, okay, we can reduce our heatsink. It's possible that they actually aren't going to sacrifice anything for it.
Right.
In order to get more out. But people are going to be mad because there's going to be a small performance hit in order to get it out. But it will help with the scalpers because I'll be honest with you, I was considering buying $1,000 PlayStation 5.
So was a lot of people.
But if you get more of them out, it may even reduce it to 800. And that's better, but you have to be able to get them out so that people can have the option to buy them somewhere else.
The problem
there's too many issues it's going to be a trade-off one way or the other.
That's the problem is like Sony's not acknowledging
I don't think they have to though.
Like Sony, Walmart, Target, like they're not really acknowledging the problem. They're like, we're doing the best we can. They're like, well, no, you're not. We've got like now there's proof that you did not do the best that you could.
You have not did the do.
Yeah. Well, Target had I thought Target had the best idea. Is the only way you can buy one is if you're going to buy one online is you have to do it like in-store pickup only. They thought that would have worked, but apparently that didn't. That actually,
but they're one retailer out of how many different ones that sell them.
Right. So apparently that didn't actually help. because
Well, the store employees, what do they care?
Yeah, well, and the thing is, you need to flood the market so that
was
even if I want to buy 500 of them, like most of the people that want to buy one can still go out and buy
What
one at
happened to
regular.
that? I remember back when the Xbox One first came out. They were shelves and shelves of them in every store. They were all over the place.
So
you couldn't have scalped them. There were too many.
Yes. In this case, there's multiple factors. They didn't ramp up production enough because they didn't think a ton of people were going to buy it immediately. And then COVID hit, and then everyone was like, well, I've got nothing to do, and I still have money coming in, so like, what am I going to do? I'm going to play games.
Yeah.
So then everyone wanted to go buy one, and then because your supply chains broke down, now you can't build it. So it's one of those things where like it's a legitimate supply chain issue where their hands are tied. They can't make more. They can't even address the market issue because they can't produce them. But making more of it sounds weird, but it's one of those few times where them getting the heat sinks changed and getting more out solves a ton of problems, but people are so focused on the fact that maybe you might take a performance hit that they're mad that nobody else is that they're not paying attention to the other issues.
Well, the one thing that's crazy because now that there's a lot of like theories or a lot of research is starting to support that if it was not for the lockdowns, like this is just another thing, lockdowns were still a good idea at the time, but if it wasn't for the lockdowns, scalpers would have never attacked consoles. Because a lot of the scalpers that are like the big time scalpers were all in like the shoe. We're all in like the shoe. There would have been scalpers, but the thing is like there wouldn't have been as many because the bigger companies are like the StockX like the shoe scalpers and like super rare item scalpers.
Yeah.
And what had happened is when
it became rare,
once they were like, well, everyone's going to want to buy these because they have nothing better to do but sit at home. Like, well, let's do it. And then where graphics cards were a different case because at the same time that these lockdowns were going on and people were playing games, we also saw an uptick in miners for cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
Which I
think those two might have been unrelated.
They do say that they're
unrelated directly, but they are related because both of you need the
in
that way, but
Kotaku
one didn't cause the other.
Kotaku did have a really good article. I guess like there's a chance. This was a while ago, but there's still a chance that that graphics cards might become easier to buy. Is you'll be buying them used, but because I guess like a lot of the companies in like China.
I wouldn't. Buying a graphics card used is really risky right now.
Right.
Because if it was a mining card, it was pushed hard for its entire life.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so they're saying like there's a chance you could do that, and they might have a better shot at graphics cards now because
the prices are going down now. I guess
with crypto, like with a lot of governments trying to get involved in cryptocurrency and trying to kind of like
they have no control over it.
Yeah. Well, they're trying to find a way. China was really trying to find a way to get like a hold on it, and I guess that was pushing people against
all the governments.
Well, one of the side things that a lot of people like if
this is our Shang-Chi episode, just by the way.
I know. Right? I was just gonna say, I love how we went from Lion King to talking about.
I was gonna
consoles.
say what's interesting about crypto and why governments get into that is because like right now, like we can run the United States can run its deficit the way that it is because the dollar is still the best bet. If you allow crypto to take its place, there's no reason to buy our stuff, and then our economy completely collapse, which is why China wants that kind of push.
No country wants an unregulated currency.
Exactly.
Because then they can't control it.
Yeah. Well, and then you have to go back to a regular free market. You can't manipulate it. And then
I do like how the memes and stuff that come out for like the PlayStation 5, like this one from Endgame. It's like, did you know in Endgame, Korg is shown to be playing a PlayStation 4, and even though it is 2025, this is because all of the PlayStation 5s are still out of stock.
It was 2023. That movie takes place in October 2023.
Matt had to try to ruin it. Ruin the joke.
But also keep in mind too for Sony, just to close out this stuff, they don't have an incentive to ramp up production really hard because what happens when they start ramping up production real hard? Supply finally meets demand.
And then it goes the other way.
Demand plummets while supply is still climbing.
Yep.
So now Sony's sitting there holding thousands or tens of thousands of consoles
units
that they're not going to sell now.
Yep.
So they need to be. So there, I guarantee you, the higher ups there are trying to be careful about how much they ramp up production.
It's a balancing act that's extremely difficult.
Because I've got one last thing. Demand is something that like it'll keep going until it doesn't, and then it falls. It'll fall off a cliff.
It's a cliff, yeah.
The good news is that all the reviews for the PlayStation 5 all say it's a good console. It's just there's no games right now.
Yeah.
So there's one last thing, and
I'm holding out for a Spider-Man version of it.
Yeah,
like because I know they're going to make a special edition. That's why I'm like, I don't need
get a God of War one.
I don't need to buy. Yeah, I don't need to buy the PlayStation 5 yet because I want to see. What
So real quick, I have my one last thing,
Zach,
and it's actually it's a story about my grandmother, and it pertains to God of War and Sony and the whole 9 yards.
He tried to tell us the story before we recorded, and I told him
to wait. Yeah.
Wait till the show.
How long are we in?
We're already halfway through the show.
Okay, hurry this up. We need 30 minutes to talk about Shang-Chi.
So real quick, my grandmother loves reading. She's always reading. She loves stories. And I just finished playing Red Dead 2 with my wife, and we got done with it. And I sat there and I thought my grandmother would love this story. So I'm trying to find a novelization of Red Dead 2, like the honor, because it's a chain of sacrifice, and I think she would absolutely love it. So like I sat down with my grandmother. That book is
probably so long.
It is. It would be. I can't find one. It hasn't been
dictionary
made yet.
Is what it is.
But so I'm sitting there talking to my grandmother. So I'm telling her the story. I'm like, there's this young kid that gets, picked up by this guy, and he sold a false bill of goods. And as he gets older, he starts to realize maybe Dutch isn't who we think he is. And he gets to a point where he ends up sacrificing himself so that somebody else might have a better life. And like that person ends up sacrificing himself so his wife and his kid might have a better life. My grandmother loved it. She started tearing up. So she's like, are there other games like that you play? And I was like, well, there's one that I've been playing recently, which is God of War.
And she's God.
And my grandmother.
Oh God.
So let's put it this way. My grandparents are phenomenal. Like they are shining examples of what Christian people should be.
Okay.
In their neighborhood, there's a bunch of drug addicts that don't respect anybody, including themselves. Every single one of them respect them. Because they're just that they're good people. They command respect because of how they live their lives.
Yeah.
And it's so I tell her about God of War, and she goes, God of War, and I'm like,
just tell her to read the Old Testament.
So it's really funny. I was like, so I know you're not going to like it, so I'll go real quick. So I'm like, it's this guy Kratos who turns out to be like one of the sons of Zeus that the gods kind of screw him over, and he goes through and kills all of the Greek gods, but. It's kind of cool because I said the same thing that I told you guys. As you kill them, like the world falls apart. So now, and she goes, "Oh, okay." So I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Well, the newest one was better. I think you'd like it because I'm hoping that the game will eventually end with a benevolent father that sends his son out to the people. So I'm hoping that they move to the monotheistic God at the end."
I remember what it was like when I hoped for things. Then The Last of Us 2 came out.
Oh God, yes. But so
we've beat that.
So as soon as like. So as I was getting ready to tell her that, I was like, so now he's in the Norse realm. And my grandmother, who is 86, looks up at me when she's just been like disinterested this whole time. She goes, oh, good. Go around and get them all.
Okay, that feels that feels troublesome.
I lost it. My grandmother was like, "Oh, he's gonna go around and kill all of the mythological gods." She goes, "Great." And all I can think of is that Mandalorian meme where it's the Baby Yoda and the Mandalorian, and it's like it's like Kratos killing all the gods. My religious grandmother, yes, die sinners, like die pagans, like it was like the greatest
You're
thing.
You're gonna shatter her world if you ever tell her where the word Thursday comes from.
Oh, she knows.
Okay.
But it's one of those things where like she just doesn't like mythology, and it was just one of those things where I thought it was hilarious. Where she was like, "Oh, I would actually kind of like that if he's just running around killing all the gods, all the small
Except
G
instead
gods."
of killing a bunch of gods, you're just killing a bunch of giants with the same club.
That sounds very Christian of her. Let's just kill all the gods.
Yeah,
it was very Christian.
It was so funny because like she's such a wonderful person.
Wonderful. She's such a wonderful.
Wunderbar.
Oh, she's a wonderful woman.
But yeah, it was just one of those things where like because she knows it's all mythology and it's all
yeah.
It's just one of those things where she
I
was
feel
just
like what you were
awesome.
about to,
Get it.
Yeah, it's all mythology. It's all ridiculous. Now let's go worship our guy in the clouds.
Is that what we're building up for Kratos to be?
I honestly,
would that be crazy if Kratos was Jesus?
No, not Jesus. Atreus. God. Atreus is Jesus, and Kratos is God.
To be honest with you, that's what I got super excited about with Kratos starting to become a benevolent god that doesn't want to interfere with people, he becomes the father, and Atreus is the son who wants to go out and help people.
Does that make Mimir the Holy Ghost?
Yes.
Dope. Speaking of ghosts,
Kabuki Man.
Kabuki Man has his own movie now. Another own movie.
Yeah, his another own movie.
own movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Is this a sequel
When did Kabuki Man come out?
or prequel?
Late 80s, I think.
Okay. Well, it looks like an old 80s film.
Kabuki
Hey, we're
Man.
finally talking about
Sergeant
Shang-Chi.
Kabuki Man. NYPD. 1990.
Hey, who are you?
I'm Mart.
Mart? Who are you?
Zart.
Zart? I'm Ian. And this is Pop Culture Unboxing.
No one's
We never did an intro for the show.
You're right. We're halfway through this show.
Hold on. I totally fully expected you to go Rart. Just
Me
to
too.
keep
Me
with
too.
the
I was
T.
waiting for that.
Because I'm not
We're Mart,
creative.
Zart, and Rart.
Mart, Zart, and Rart.
No one's going to get that.
It's like Rack Shack and Benny from VeggieTales.
I think the funny thing is, I feel like if someone even saw Shang-Chi, they're not going to understand what we
No.
just
That
did
joke.
there. But
Shang-Chi
Oh.
was good.
it was really good.
I had expectations
great.
going into it that it was going to be like middle of the pack Marvel movie, and I'll put it top quarter.
It's definitely good, and I think the biggest
it
thing
revamped
was
my excitement for the MCU.
It's-
So that's a
I'm
strange
trying to
feeling.
think. It might be closer to the top 10 for me.
I feel like I just watched.
It's- as movies. I personally love the Captain America movies, mostly with the way that they built Captain America, where it's about the principles, not the institutions.
Yep.
But it's literally right underneath that one for me.
Yeah.
like it is
I-
number one outside of my favorites.
I was very shocked that I walked out of that and was like, I feel like I just watched Iron Man 2 again. Like I feel like I'm all excited for the future of the Marvel.
yeah.
now.
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah, this
I
is-
was very like when I watched the Marvel TV shows. I think I've made it very clear I do not care about a lot of
Yeah.
the stuff that's going on in the Marvel world right now. And Shang-Chi's just like, I'll fix you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It was just a
It
good
really
movie.
was good. Well, and I think one of the things that I mentioned to both you guys, and both you guys agreed to it, is it outside of Thanos, it has the best villain, is
Yes.
the best antagonist.
I even think he's better than
I think so
Thanos.
too.
I'm still
As-
stuck on
but
that idea.
You have a really good point, Zach. But,
Yeah.
I know you're about to get to it. But I mean, he just is characterized so well.
Yes,
I
they
think
do a
that,
very good job.
like,
of it.
Why
His
Thanos is
motivations
good?
and stuff are brilliant.
Thanos is good for a certain reason. Wenwu is good for a different reason. Like, and
So
it's
go ahead and give your argument.
So, in my argument for why he's not as good as Thanos is because of the scale, and the reason being
Right.
is that like both of them have solid motivations. Both of them genuinely believe what they are doing is the way to bring about a better world,
a
or
better
a better life.
a bet, yeah, for themselves.
And
right.
but for in Shang-Chi, it's about his world.
Right.
In Thanos, it's about the universe.
The
so it's
greater.
Yeah.
and the only reason why I think you have to put him above is because the motivations are extremely similar. The character arc is different, and Thanos is less. I feel like in Shang-Chi, the dad is he's more manipulated by forces, as where Thanos is just the dad is choosing. So it's still a choice. He never stops choosing.
I attribute. Oh,
But
sorry.
I was gonna say, but Thanos is he's always chosen, and there's no manipulation going on at all. So that's why I put him above.
I attribute to like with Thanos, he goes through kind of like an awakening because when he gets his second Infinity Stone, because I think it's the second one. He takes off his armor and now he's like on a spiritual quest. Like for Thanos, all of this is all like a sacrifice.
Yes.
Like he knows how this is going to end
Well,
for
'cause-
him in the sacrifice. Where Wenwu is not doing like I will sacrifice everybody for my own personal gain.
yeah.
But weirdly enough, I feel like that type of villain is written a lot, but this one really you feel kind of bad because where you think he's like, oh, this is the Mandarin, he's probably just an evil dude, but really like I felt for the guy.
Yeah.
he quit being like
Well, because, and I think that's a big thing that separates him is that Thanos just like the problem he wanted to solve. The reason he's a good villain is because he was trying to solve a problem that everyone agrees is a problem.
Right.
Is that resources are being used too much. He went with the solution of killing half the population. So we can understand his motivations, but his conflict isn't. He has no conflict over whether or not to do it. His only conflict is with the heroes trying to stop him.
Yep.
Which kind of works because Infinity War almost frames him as the protagonist of the story.
Right.
Like not saying he's a good, using protagonist in the sense that he's the main.
He's the main character. Yeah.
But for Wenwu in Shang-Chi, it's very much he's conflicted. Like he's not doing this to harm people or anything like that. At least not once he meets his wife. He's
says
doing
that.
this to help his. He genuinely believes that what he's doing is the right thing to do.
Well, that's what he says. He says
which
it.
Thanos does too. But Thanos, it's not personal for Thanos.
He says that I'm gonna go. Is like I'm doing this to go save my wife who's calling to me, and his son Shang-Chi says to him, "It's just like, well, what if the village doesn't let you?" He's like, then they'll all burn. Like he doesn't want to kill anybody. He even asks them to step aside when he's staring across from him during like the big epic fight.
Yeah.
And they say no, and then he's like, I have to do it.
Okay.
Then. Like,
Yeah, well, and I think that's one of those things that I think that The Last of Us 1 did a really good job with when you're coming up against conflict against other people.
right.
Where in The Last of Us, Joel and Ellie are allowed to go across the country. There's no there's nothing that is immoral about them going across the country, and people are getting in their way and stopping them. So it's one of those things where it's like, listen, I'm allowed to go do this thing, and if you're going to prevent me, then I'm gonna stop you from stopping me. Right. And he looks at it that way. The father looks at it that way when he goes, I'm going to get my wife. You're not going to stop me from freeing my wife. My wife is trapped.
Right.
So I'm doing a good thing, and if you're going to prevent me from doing that, I'm going to break you down. But if you're not going to do that, then we've got no problem.
I also like the idea like he does still love his family because he tells both his daughter and son, he's like, if I get my wife back, we can be a family again.
Yep.
Like it's kind of that idea. Like he still wants to give up what he's doing. He just wants the only way he's going to give the rings up is if he can have his family
It's a thing
back.
of like they want because. All right, so to step back, the story of Shang-Chi is about Shang-Chi, who's the son of Wenwu, also known by a bunch of different names. I think he mentions that he's Genghis Khan. Doesn't he?
He said he doesn't say he's Genghis Khan. They said that in that like Easter egg video, they acknowledged the fact that like because of
No, not that. When he's talking to Katie, Aquafina's character at the table.
Yeah, he says I've been known as many things. He doesn't say Genghis Khan.
I thought he said Genghis or a Khan or something. Anyway, unimportant. He has all these different names he goes by, and Shang-Chi and Xiling, are his son and daughter respectively. And he spent 1,000 years conquering the world and then found love with their mother, who was a guardian of Talo, a ancient like dimension next door to Earth, basically. They fall in love. She leaves there because they won't accept him there because of his many crimes. And which I think is a spoiler for about the end of the movie.
Yeah, I wouldn't go too much.
But
farther.
anyway, so but he starts this. She ends up dead. She ends up dead, and he continues his brutal empire regime.
I would say, let's just say,
and so his son runs away.
I would say, let's just say, because I don't want you, because you're dancing around something.
I know.
And then he decides he wants to go take over where his wife was, and that's
Yeah.
and that's
He
it.
wants to go there.
The rest of it can be a little. We've already kind of danced.
But anyway,
around
that's
a
the conflict.
spoiler
So the main
for it.
character left his father because he's a brutal warmonger.
Right.
Well, and I think what's really interesting about the way that they built up this character is that he is power hungry, and then he finds something that's worth.
I don't think we can discuss this movie like in the themes of it without spoiling it.
Right.
I think I might have a good
The
way
more
to do
I'm
it.
thinking about it,
I think I might have a good way to do it.
okay.
So he is striving for power. He meets this woman that can temper that power, and he goes, I would rather have this. I'd rather have some meaning in my life than power. So he goes for meaning, and he gives up his immortality. So,
I still
but
feel
what
like
happens?
what you're saying is
Okay, pause the show. Go see the movie. It's worth seeing.
Yeah, that's true.
And
I
let's
don't
just-
think we can do this
okay.
without spoilers.
Yeah.
yeah. Go
okay.
ahead and say what you're saying.
Stop. Last warning. Stop now if you haven't seen it because you really should see this movie.
Oh, it's great.
Rewind to go back to the talks about Simba killing himself.
Yeah, just listen to that.
Go
Yeah.
back to that.
So
Okay.
So what happens is like I think if he would have lost his wife, like if she would have gotten cancer or if she would have died of old age, he wouldn't have done what he did. But he lost his wife to a malevolent force.
Right.
And he feels like that was taken from him. So then he goes back to his old ways, which is such a good story to tell.
He even says that. He says, I tried, but I can't. It's impossible for me to leave this world.
And like he had something that like tethered him to it. And I think it's one of those things where like if it would have been a tragic death with her rather than a malevolent death from an outside force, I think he could have been like, okay, I'm going to give these to my children. But it wasn't an outside
force. It was karma coming back for all the stuff he.
It was karma.
Evil he did came back to him.
That was
it was karma, but
he
it also
wasn't there
wasn't
to pay the debt.
That's the thing that's important to understand about like Wen-Wu is like, it's crazy that he was not surprised that this was going to happen eventually. Because he has done so much bad.
Mm-hmm. But I think he is at that point in his life, he expected that it would catch up with him eventually, but it didn't catch up with him. It caught up with his family.
Right.
And by extension, him. But I also think that's one of the things that like, because like he made a genuine change, and you can tell that in the character, the villain that he became, where he genuinely became a better person. He gave up what he was to do something that was more meaningful and have a wife and have children and raise them right. And if she died by any other means, it's a tragic thing, but it happens and you deal with it. You continue to raise your kids and maybe you give the rings to your kids, but you found something that's worth passing on. But what happened, even though it's like karma that comes back to get him, which is correct, it's still an outside malevolent force that causes that, because he's made his atonement. He's moved forward. And it's kind of one of those things, like, have you ever seen somebody that's like kind of been garbage in their life and they start doing the right thing? Nobody believes them.
I relate.
Yeah.
I've always been garbage.
And like, that's one of those things where like when people don't treat you the way you genuinely are now, you get resentful towards them because you're like, I'm not a bad person anymore. Why are you still treating me like I was that person? Well, they don't know you by any other person.
Right.
So these people show up to exact revenge, not realizing that this man has changed. So when they do this to him, he's being punished, even though he's a good person. Being a good person isn't worth it. Being a good person actually caused his pain.
I don't think that's exactly right, because it's exactly what he says to his son after his wife gets dead.
Gets dead. That's such
is he tells his son that a blood debt must be paid in blood.
Yes.
And he believes that, and so did the people who killed his wife. There wasn't the option of just letting him go because he changed his ways.
Yep.
There was a blood debt to be paid, and it had to be, and she was the one who paid it, not him.
Well, and
then he had the choice to let it go and live with his kids, and he didn't.
Yeah,
and that's the key thing.
I think that's why it's important that he says, like, I tried, but I couldn't, is because he can't resist the urge to have that power back.
He went back to his normal ways.
Right.
Which I think, which is a story arc that isn't really put out there anymore, where it's like people become, it's either people become good or bad. And it's not one of those things where it's like, this person actively chose to do the right thing for a long time. And when things went wrong, he went back to what he knew. Which is oddly, it's actually a biblical theme, which I think is really cool. And it's a phenomenal theme.
Yeah, and it becomes this thing where it's not a thing of like, oh, he threatens the entire universe and all that. It's just two kids who just wanted their dad to be there for them,
right?
And he had no idea how to do it.
Yep,
he went to what he knew.
Yes, exactly.
And so nice. And is it necessarily evil? Maybe not. Seeking vengeance because they killed your wife in cold blood, like. He's not.
It's understandable.
He's not necessarily totally wrong, but then he continues the rampage.
Yeah,
and continues to rebuild the 10 rings. Turns his son into a killing machine and basically abandons his daughter.
Yeah,
because he lost sight of
YOLO.
what exactly his wife had. What his wife had taught him. Lost sight of it completely.
Well, and I think that was one of those. That was another theme that I actually really enjoyed. Is kind of that nurturing element for women that can temper. Like I was talking about this with my wife after the movie, where it's like men are doing two things. They're either building or destroying. So like this guy was just going around destroying and building a corrupt empire. And then he found something worth building that was good. So he stopped destroying to build. And it's a really cool theme, but that's something that he couldn't do without that feminine touch coming in and her playing her role to temper him, to stop him from destroying.
I think the movie explicitly says that is that he spent those 1,000 years looking for meaning,
Yes,
and didn't
And couldn't
find it
find
until
it.
he found love.
exactly. And it's such a cool.
But then it got stolen from him.
Yeah.
And he didn't see his kids as the culmination of that.
Mm-hmm.
He just saw that his wife was dead, and that was in the switch flipped, and he was evil.
I feel for him.
Yeah,
I
he
think-
is a very sympathetic
I think
character.
he
The
is.
most brilliant thing is when they're getting ready to assault the village, and he's sitting there planning, and he hears her voice, and he looks over and remembers, or either he thinks he sees her in the bed, or he remembers her being there. I didn't know how that was being framed.
I think he hears her. No, I think they say he sees it because she looks back at him. I think
Is that what
the way it's framed? It's the he sees her.
Yeah.
like he hears her voice and he remembers her. Being
Yeah,
there.
but
Okay.
but the look on his face is just so good. It just shows that the pain and just everything he's going through in that moment, and then he gets interrupted. Like it's time to go.
He
Yeah.
is one of the best actors.
He
in
was
China.
so good.
He did so
He
good.
absolutely
He was.
stole the show. Like
wonderful villain.
Simu Liu did great as Shang-Chi. I didn't mind Aquafina as Katie. Normally she plays really, really annoying characters.
I really liked her character's arc. And
it was a good
phenomenal.
arc.
She was a good
she's-
comic relief character too.
Yeah,
she kind of filled the role of comic relief and exposition dump, where
Yeah.
she was the character the audience experienced the movie through.
Which I think
Which is-
was
you have
good
to have.
enough. I think was good.
Michelle Yeoh, great as ever.
Well, I think what was really cool.
And his sister, I don't know how to pronounce this. Mengir Zhan. MENG apostrophe ER ZHANG.
Names are hard.
It turns out that when they're all named in a language that nobody here speaks, and a lot of sounds don't even exist in English.
Right.
But anyway, everyone knocked it out of the park. I have a couple issues with the movie, but they're all so minor. It's like,
well, to be honest with you,
we're starting. Oh, go ahead. Finish that last thought. Because
Okay.
we're running out of time. I want to get like a number score from each one of you.
I kind of want to. I'm fine with the episode going a little longer because there are I do have some issues with this film.
Oh,
So-
Again, minor ones.
so I think that
So we can do that number score, close it
yeah.
out.
So I think that
Okay.
Katie's arc was phenomenal, and I think I was talking about this a little bit before we started recording. Is they do this really really good theme of like submitting yourself to some kind of role in life, and neither Katie or Shang-Chi want to do that, and like it's interesting is because Katie's family is looking at both of them saying, hey, like you two need to get married, you two need to get a better job, you two need to do specific things. And it's like, you're telling me what you want me to do. You're not telling me that I need to take responsibility. You're telling me what responsibility you want me to take.
Yeah.
right.
And throughout the movie,
Didn't
they
think of it
get
that way.
pushed to this point where they start to realize, okay, I do need to submit to something. And in the end, as they've gone through this like story, realizing like, okay, I can't be nothing my whole life. The old man that does the arrow training looks at her and goes, if you aim at nothing, you'll be nothing. And it clicks for her where it's like, oh, you're not telling me to get married.
He says directly, if you aim at nothing, you'll hit nothing. But you're on the same nail of what he means.
Yeah, and I think it's what's really
the same
cool about
realm
that
of
is
what
it's
he
one of
means.
those things where everyone else in her life was telling her what they wanted her to do, but they were roughly telling her the same thing. But he just said, hey, listen, no matter what you do, you have to aim at something.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then she goes, oh, okay, I'll aim at something. And then you see that come to that reality come through with her character. And I think that's something that, like, especially our generation and the generation behind us really struggles with. They really
Yeah.
struggle with submitting to something because there's so many options. They don't want to pin themselves down, but in the process, they never become anything.
I relate to that.
Yeah, so do I.
So do I.
Yeah, it's the age of technology. We know all the possible jobs there are to be out there.
Yeah.
All right. Do you guys have any grievances you want to share about this movie?
I hated
Any-
the sister.
I didn't hate her. She's one of the ones I want to bring up.
I guess so it's hard because I really liked everything, and everything that I don't like about this film kind of gets fixed as the film goes along.
Yeah.
And as I've had time to think about it. I don't have a lot that's really like, other than just like some of the CGI didn't look all that great at times.
Yeah.
Just like the typical nitpicky stuff.
Yeah.
That's like, this film's not a 10 out of 10
And
for
a
me,
lot of mine are
but
kind of nitpicky.
it's pretty high up there.
Like, okay, so the sister.
Yeah.
I didn't mind her character all that much. I think the thing I took issue with is when she's explaining to Aquafina's character, Katie, that she wasn't being trained, so she watched the boys train and taught herself how to do it better.
Right.
That's not how fight training works. You need someone to spar against. I think what they should have done more there with her is lean into her paying attention to how her father ran the 10 rings.
Right.
Where Shang-Chi was being trained,
Yep.
but she was paying attention, and she gets her father's cunning and ability to mold people into organizations that are useful.
Almost
to her.
do a bait and switch of set it up that she's going to take over the actual, like, hold the actual rings and take over the 10 rings organization. But,
And that what was the other thing? The pacing was just weird. Like head this off, I don't mean in the sense that it's paced like more traditional Chinese film.
Yeah.
With the flashbacks and such. That's fine. I recognize that from a lot of famous foreign films.
Yeah.
My issue is more with just how the second and third act fit together.
Yeah.
Is that there's just no real clear point, which you don't have to have, I guess.
Yeah.
But I specifically remember during the first fight in the village, feeling like we were watching the final battle already.
that's what
Even
I
though it
thought.
wasn't quite, there's a lull in the battle at that point, because the villagers fighting Wenwu's people is not the final battle.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, and maybe that was a goal of the filmmakers.
So
But, like-
I have two that kind of piggyback off of what you just said.
Yeah.
I did not. I felt it was very, like, quick, even though, like, it made sense that Wenwu's soldiers then eventually teamed up with their enemy to take down a bigger
The Tallow.
a bigger enemy. Like, they joined together. Where I didn't like is I felt like it was real quick.
Oh,
and it was
yeah.
done with it was really done with a joke instead of, like,
Yeah.
So I felt like
Realizing-
it was just real fast. Like, oh, now they're running with them. Like,
Yep.
And the other thing that comes with that final battle scene that I didn't like is we already had, like, a sacrifice. Like, his father sacrifices himself and gives the rings to Shang. But then we had that second, like, bait and switch of a sacrifice with his sister be like, let go of me, when they're hanging off the dragon. I was like, well, they're not going to kill her off. But
That wasn't the point of that scene.
Right, but that's what they were given this. They were given, like, the music that hit off that it was given off that she
I don't
was,
think that's what that was for. I think that scene was for her as a character.
I understand.
Is that she expects him to let her go for the greater good or whatever.
I get what that was. It's just, but I felt like you could have done the same thing. You could have done it differently and getting the same reaction in some sort of way. I just
Maybe.
felt like it was very, like, they were holding on the idea, like, he's gonna, like, they were also putting an underline that she's sacrificing herself too for the win, even though you know she's not going to die. It's the idea is, like, you know how this is going to end. Like, you know he's not going to let her go, and you know what I mean.
But okay, but
the
I
film
could
sets up that whole idea that, like, this is a scene for her to show that no, he's not going to let her go now.
Yeah.
but you already knew that it was already.
But it also shows his
was
growth.
coming.
because the movie does not portray it as a good decision of his to abandon his sister there.
Right.
And that scene is very cathartic for both him as a character and her as a character.
Right.
But I disagree with your logic that just because you know she's going to be fine, by that same logic, why bother rewatching movies if you already know how they're going to end?
I guess it felt too, like, I'm also sacrificing myself to let me go, and it's just like, well, we already had this. Like, you don't.
It also doesn't fit with her character, and, like, I actually figured out, because earlier I was trying to figure out how to say to you guys why I didn't like her character, and it's a mix of two things, where the entire story is about submitting yourself to a role that you play in history, or a role that you play in life, and she doesn't want to play her role; she wants to play Shang-Chi's role, and that could be a really, really cool arc. But instead, they made it about, like, modern issues, like modern political issues that she's facing, because it's like, oh, well, I'm a girl, so I didn't get the opportunity. It's like, it's like, yeah, I get it. But, like, instead of it being, like you said, which I thought was great, the idea of her having a different set of competencies and still being snubbed would have been a much better thing, where it's like, okay, well, I want his role, even though that's not my role to play. My role might be running the organization,
Right.
where his is to be a warrior, but I want to be the warrior, so I'm not going to submit to my role. And that could be a really cool story, but they never played it like that.
Right.
They played it as, like, here's the standard modern issues that women face which makes no sense to the rest of the story that we're telling. And she just stood out like a sore thumb. And
The
that's
weird
why
thing is,
Katie's
I
better.
really liked a lot of her scene. Like I like her as a character. I definitely like some of the scenes that she in. It's just that was that one scene where I was just like, this just feels like this is out
Well,
of
I think
place.
part of what helps her character is
Doesn't
that
feel
it's
like-
never totally clear if she's a good guy or not. Like a lot of
Yeah,
it is
it's like
just her
50-50.
interests align with
Well, you don't think
Shang-Chi's.
you still don't think she is.
I don't think she is. I don't think that 10 rings thing is setting up them as a good team right now.
Well,
I think
no,
they're setting
they
it up
should-
as she's taking over and going to do the same thing her father was.
Yes, and I think that's one of those things where because I think that argument was phenomenal, where it's like she should have a different set of competencies and not want to take the role. So she'll actually submit to the role, but she's not actually committed to submitting to that role.
I like new Rockstar's ideas. Like this sets up like also a tournament to introduce more characters into the MCU.
Yeah.
in
To
some
be clear,
way.
she did absolutely get more of the cunning and stuff from her father than
Yes.
Shang-Chi did. But I think they should have leaned more into it, is what I'm saying, rather than
Yes.
also having her get all of his fighting abilities too.
Right.
Yeah, you ended up in this weird. And I think that was kind of the thing where like it bothered me because like they did a really good job with the father and the mother dynamic, where they showed the differences between men and women and how together they create something really cool. But you have to submit to that role. Like you can't be both. So pick a lane.
Right.
Yeah.
And in her case, she doesn't want to submit, which would have been a really cool thing where like she begrudgingly submits and still does it in this movie, like where she sacrifices herself. But then as soon as it's not like absolutely necessary, she no longer wants to submit to it anymore.
Yeah.
Which would have made a really cool character, but I think it ended up being this weird thing where it's like she doesn't have anything else to submit to. So it doesn't become the same storyline with different arcs of different characters.
Yeah.
It actually becomes the same, like it becomes this different thing that it's like an obvious sore thumb in the movie. But there's only like 3 parts of it, which is why I still like think the movie's great. But the sister is the weakest character, and it's obvious
I think I
that
agree
she's the
with that.
weakest character.
Yeah. And in theory, Aquafina's character, Katie, should be, but she's fun and she serves as, again, our eyes into the film.
Yeah.
They have to explain it to her so that we understand the stakes and who everyone is.
In the backstory.
My final grievance, the one that took me out of the movie completely, and in my opinion makes it a 0 out of 10, is that when we first are done with all of the intro stuff at the beginning, it flashes to Shang-Chi as an adult, and it says present day. Now,
I knew
For
this
all of
wasn't
you
gonna
following
be, I
along
knew
at
this
home.
wasn't going to be serious.
for all of you following along at home, the events of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, for the most part, have lined up with real time, with the exception, I think, of obviously Captain America, but then also Thor.
What are you talking about? Captain America came out in 1950.
Yeah, you're right. They just didn't release it until
Yeah.
publicly.
They
Thor,
filmed it
what is
in
it?
the
It's
50s.
Thor, Iron Man 2, and Hulk all take place within 1 week, despite coming out like a couple years apart.
Right.
Other than that, Marvel movies have generally taken place right around the same time that they came out, up until Endgame, when within 25, 30 minutes at the beginning, there's a 5-year time skip, which puts the events of Endgame, which came out in 2019, at 2023. And I Googled this, and people said it takes place in October 2023, so sure, why not? Which means that the beginning of Shang-Chi, which takes place after the blip being when everyone came back. The blip, which is established in Spider-Man Far From Home. The blip is when everyone came back. So 5 years later, October 2023, at the earliest, there's posters talking about the blip behind him, and there's comments made about it.
And it's 2024 in the MCU timeline.
So
right
yeah,
now.
if it's 2024, then it can't be the present day.
But it's present day for the MCU. Like it's present day for the current.
it's
But when you
MCU.
say present
it's
day in a
for
movie,
the story. So like if I do present day is relative, because if I were to be doing
guys.
Captain
Wait a minute.
America,
Wait a minute. Hang on a sec here. So if I watch a movie that came out in like the 80s, like today, and it says present day, that film immediately becomes terrible for you?
yes.
Okay.
I was gonna say because like even if
You
you
guys
were to
do
watch,
know I know what it means.
Yes,
and I'm
I
being
know.
super nitpicky. I just want to make sure.
Did you not hear me say? I was
was-
like, I knew his last one wasn't going to be serious.
Oh, yeah.
to Zach.
I was gonna give a funny
It
logical
bugged me
thing,
more
but-
than it should, though. A little bit, just a little bit.
I don't understand you sometimes, Matt. Do you think that we're idiots? Do you think we're dumb? Is that what this is? Because you immediately got defensive. You guys know I'm not stupid. I get what present day means. No, we were with the joke. We're following with you. We're going with you in this boat ride of a
I just
terrible
assumed
joke.
you guys did think I was an idiot.
No.
And
Matt, I've known you for like 3 years. I clearly know you're not an idiot. I don't know. It's been a long time.
the thing that makes me funny
All right, yeah.
is
So yeah,
I don't
it
take
took
jokes.
me out of the movie. 0 out of 10. Don't go see it. It doesn't take place. Wait until early 2024, then go, or probably mid 2024. No, wait, it's San Francisco.
But no later. Don't you see this in
No.
2025
You're not
or
that's-
2026?
Your window to
If you
watch
do
it
not-
is February 2024 to August 2024.
We need to figure out
That's your window. I decree it now.
We
Why
need to
August? I thought
figure
it said
Because
out.
then fall starts.
I say, I thought you said it takes place in October. So
No,
then you can't
Endgame
watch it in February.
The end of Endgame
okay.
takes place in October
No,
2023.
what we need to do
I
is
see.
we need to take all the flashbacks out. We need to go back in time and watch them on the respective days, and then pause the movie every day change. That way we can follow the days in
Let's
order.
just call Disney and be like, hey, can you patch out present day for this? My buddy Matt's really upset.
just start a tweet.
Yes, please.
I'll tweet at at Walt Disney Studios.
Not my present day.
I'd say like
Hashtag not my present
hashtag
day.
not my present day. Hashtag Groundhog Day.
Yes.
Oh God! All right,
But
What's your score?
my score. Honestly, I'm giving it a 9 out of 10.
Cool. Okay.
wow. Okay.
And I'll be honest with you, I absolutely loved it. I think one of the things I mentioned earlier is that I like that they paid a lot of homage to the old like movies like with Jackie Chan.
Yeah.
And I mentioned I was like,
yeah.
And the
I was
Matrix.
like,
I didn't know that until we watched that video.
Oh yeah, I was saying this before. I was like, if this was in the 90s, Shang-Chi would be Jackie Chan, and that bus scene would be all one long shot with Jackie
long
Chan
take.
fighting. It would have been the coolest thing in the world if they would have done something like that.
I give it the same score because this is also important to know. What Brian Allen, right?
yeah,
Brad
yeah.
Allen or Brian Allen? I can't.
Brad
remember.
Allen. I think he's.
Brad
I
Allen.
think he's the.
Yeah.
He was one of the stunt guys that
Yeah.
worked with Jackie Chan.
Yeah. So because Jackie Chan, if you didn't know, started his own stunt company, and that's why he did when they did all their films. And this film at the end has a in loving memory of Mr. Allen, who was one of the people that helped to build stunts for this film and worked with Jackie Chan in most of Jackie Chan's films were stunts. So didn't.
You made me think of something, Zach, but I can't remember what movie it was.
Oh, 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10 for me.
I'm around there, 8.5, 9 out of 10. It definitely is. I absolutely put it in the top quarter of Marvel films, if not close to or in the top 10.
Oh my!
It was really good.
It has become my number 2 movie. Captain America: Winter Soldier will always be my number 1, but it is my number 2 in the MCU.
Yeah, I mean, Captain America, Winter Soldier, and Civil War obviously very high. Infinity War, Endgame also very high up on the list. The Spider-Man movies are both really good. I always forget how many good movies there are in the MCU. This one really re-energized my faith in the MCU going forward.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
I'm more excited about the MCU now than I was in a while.
And I'll be honest with you, I give it the 9 out of 10 because of the storyline content. They stuck with solid storyline plots, and they were able to not try to outpace the previous movies. So they created a good standalone movie on its own. It was just good.
Okay, here it is. Tony Jaa, The Protector. It's a movie
What'd you
where
call me?
it's an 4 or 8 minute long take of him fighting his way up a tower,
That's awesome.
and he's fighting dozens of dudes, and
Oh, that's the one that's all one long
it's
shot.
all
where it's like a
rotating
side-
up the tower
Yep.
as he's going. Absolutely phenomenal shot.
Choreographed.
Oh my god, the choreography and everything that went into it. Look it up. If I remember, I'll put a link in the show notes. But it's Tony Jaa, The Protector, long
awesome.
take. If you look that up.
Cool.
That's
That's it. End this.
Thank you all for listening. Social media, Pop Culture Unboxing. Me, Matt, Matt Ross
Wait,
VO,
that's not your
Twitter. Me, Matt Ross VO.
Is your name Matt? I thought your name was
Mart.
Mart.
But you can find me I misspelled it, Matt Ross VO on Twitter or Jan Jingle on Twitch.
You misspelled your name. Okay.
On Twitter, yeah.
I see.
Zart.
Sir, you can find me on Twitter at Little Leaf, LIEF. It's important to put an underscore between that because I'm not a middle-aged Brazilian woman.
Rart.
Wait. Where else?
Oh, you can also find me at Little Leaf on Twitch, which if I get home in time, I will be playing poker tonight.
Nice.
Yesterday, if you're listening to this episode.
Yeah.
I'm Rart. Is that what you called me? Rart?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Right.
Right.
You're right.
There we go.
I'm right. And
Now Now you just sound like my dad.
You can find me at Instagram,
Wow.
Twitter at RikiTiki252. And you can find me on Twitch, never, because I don't do it anymore, because I'm a loser and I'm terrified of having no one talk to me or watch my content.
Dude, same. Thank you all for listening. I love you.
I'll Twitch it.
Goodbye.
I'll Twitch again. Someday.
Ryan's gonna Twitch again.
I'll Twitch again someday. Bye.